credibility. There's also the Red SIP validity and the other certifications. Check out the welcome room for that. I'm going to bring Raymond right up on stage with us now, live, and have a quick hello before he starts his actual intro. Hi, Raymond. I just wanted to bring you and say thank you for everything that you do for Inbox Expo. We always wanted it to be much more than marketing. It's definitely everything email this year, and a huge part of that has to be to do with the support that you gave us from the very start, the introductions that you gave me last year or about 18 months ago, and we'll continue to work on those. And you know, the expo is shaping up to be everything that we wanted it to be, and a big part of that is to do with your support. And I just want to give you my big thanks for everything that you've done, and everyone that's listening, thank you for everything. It's been an amazing expo so far. It's a fantastic uber geeky day. It's the last day. Lots of stuff on DMARC, BIMI, BMC, authentication, protecting yourself, postmasters and others today. So today is a fantastic day, and I'm really looking forward to this keynote from yourself, Raymond. I'm going to get off your stage in a second. I will bring up your slide, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about reputational what.
Yeah, thank you. So thanks, Matt, also for the intro, and you, Andrew. I think you and Nelly did a great job, especially when I see like the changes after the last online conferences and what we do now. I think it's not going to be forgotten soon how this conference is going, and the whole lineup with speakers is, I think, very worthy to spend your days with. So that's a great alternative for the real live events that we plan to have in Spain.
Very soon.
Yeah, very soon.
Okay, I'll let you go.
Yeah, thank you. So, thank you all for joining. I'm going to try to do a keynote for you guys. I was really hoping to do this in Spain. Eventually, the email expert conference was supposed to be a physical event, but I think we're not there yet. But we're trying. So basically, I was giving a freebie for any talk I would do, which is a great honor and also appreciation of trust, because, well, I did not even have to share the slides before, so might be funny what you're going to see now. No. So basically, if we start up, who am I? I'm Raymond Dijkxhoorn. Matthew almost got it right. I think we have to practice a little bit more with some beers or something. We'll get it right, Matt. Don't worry. I'm Raymond. I'm living in the Netherlands, so actually this conference has the perfect time zone for me. Usually I'm in the middle of the night somewhere in the US or in Canada or in... this is actually quite nice for me. I have about 30 years email experience, email admin experience, so not like sending an email, but maintaining systems. Makes it also quite different if you maintain reputation lists and you actually have been running large-scale mail systems for ISPs and ESPs, then you also understand their pain and needs a little bit better, I think. We started with SURBL almost 20 years ago. This year we basically have our 20-year anniversary for that. So we have quite some experience. There's not a lot that you could tell us what we not have heard before. And we'll get to that later in the slides. Some people think that we started to do this yesterday and come up with the same lame excuses, but well, they try to get their email delivered. It's all about deliverability, I guess. So SURBL also was the first domain block list. And we now call it a block list. When we started it was called something different, but we'll get to that. So this is basically telling it all, right? it's the Deliverability Summit. It's the Inbox Expo. This is what you guys do. You send email. So you just click the button and you send, and you're done. But then the whole party around it starts. Like, should I really have sent this, or is it the right audience? Is it the right content? And then we have heard it the last few days. Is the click-through, is the open rate fine? That's basically what you find out after sending. So it is about deliverability. I agree with that. But it's also about the customer. And sometimes people forget about that. If your customer feels he's not waiting for your new message, then you're targeting the wrong audience. And that all has to do with the quality of the list, the type of customer that you're serving. Sometimes as an ESP, it might be that you think the customer needs this, but in fact, he's not waiting for it. But that's life, I guess. And it's hard. I mean, I also understand that everybody is trying to make a living, one way or the other. And when we started seeing countries on lockdown, we also knew that changes would appear in what people were selling, the way they were selling it. And I think after a year, things are a bit more stabilized than it was before. But still, if you're sending an email, you need to think, you need to rethink again. And the time bomb that is in this picture is there for a reason. You can basically build your whole online reputation, and you have been building that for years, but you can basically destroy it with just one wrong email campaign. And it goes pretty fast. And it's not only the email campaigns that you should be worried about, like, does this campaign benefit my brand, or does it do other things? But there's also an issue that if you are, let's say, you're using an ESP, and there are plenty of ESPs that are attending this conference, so we all know who the big players are. There's also a possibility that your account, which is with that ESP, will be compromised. Has been over the years, and if your user base will be targeted with malware, then basically your brand is being destroyed. So be very careful. If you sign up somewhere and you have ESPs, check if they have two-factor authentication. Sounds rather logical, but if we see the ESPs that have been breached, most of their clients, I must say, did not think about their account ever being breached. But still, it happens. It happens more than once. And you could also prevent things like that, I think, if you take some precautions there. And we have some tips also. So, reputation providers. When we started way back, it was more like a ninja show. Nobody knew who blacklist providers, blocklist providers, nobody knew who was behind something. Many still use different names than they have in real life. That's not the case with SURBL. We always have been open. If you write to SURBL and you get an email from Raymond, it's me. But there's various reasons that the names are changed in some organizations. So we are not only trying to combat spam from legitimate ESPs or brands, or we also battle against botnets. We battle against cyber criminals, and those guys are not the most friendly. So many of the guys in our scene basically try to just protect themselves with that. So if you get an email from our friends at Spamhaus, likely their names are not the guys who are writing to you, but that's with good reasons. So it is unfortunately the world that we're living in. And there's many of the list providers who also attend sessions here, which I'm really grateful for. It's really good that you basically understand that all the names that I'm pointing out here, and this is just a few of them, are actually real people. They do real work. They do an amazing job to keep your inbox clean. Sometimes, business-wise, as a sender, as an ESP, you might not be happy with us, but we don't do random stuff. So there's always a reason. If you have the need to contact us, something happened. And usually it's not something that we initiated. It's something that we encounter. We meet, something happened. It could be a compromised customer. It could be a customer that is basically feeding in a list that should not be fed in. Can be anything. And nice to meet you. But in the perfect world, you would not need us, right? So there's also, and this one I added specifically, a lot of the lists are quite open in usage and in explanation. You can check the spam cop site, and you basically see when the listing happened. Same applies for SURBL. You can see some things online. Spamhouse has a nice reporting site that you could use. There's also others where it's a little bit harder. For example, if you try to deliver your email stream to Microsoft and you get like funny messages, there is ways to find out, but for the majority, it will basically be a black box. Like something happened, I don't know, I cannot deliver anymore. There's the Postmaster programs and some other programs to help you out there, but still, it's a pain in the ass. And don't be confused that Microsoft is not doing, for example, I mean, Microsoft is not the only one, just as an example. Don't be confused that they are only sourcing data from their own machines. I am pretty sure that basically all of the big inbox providers also use third-party data, including ours, including Spamhouse data, including SpamCop data. So you will eventually, if you get a listing, run into trouble somehow. Some people don't really want to know, like, okay, I see that I have a listing, I'll take care of it. And sometimes that process gets speeded up, and I'll get to that later in the presentation, because basically, if you get listed, it's the start of your reputation that's going down, and it can go down pretty fast. It's not something that we are proud of, but it's something that we together, ESPs, senders, and the operators of the block lists, that's something they can do together. So it's a matter of talking to us, I think. Find out what's going on. So it is about reputation management, and it's about your brand. So what is your brand about? Is it about trust? What's your marketing doing to the brand name, to the credibility, to the popularity? What impression do you give with your email? So there's much more than just having a writer making an email template, fill it with your latest marketing blah, and just beam it up. It has to match your brand. People has to be basically excited to open your email. And I know it's hard. Your email, especially the last year, everybody has basically one way to do it. Email has been surging in traffic volumes because it was a great way to basically reach people. But now you have to be the one that stands out. How can you basically make your email different than any other? And that's something, if you really think about the email, really think about how to build that brand, that basically also tells you that if somebody unsubscribes, so be it. Then that's basically what that's not your customer, right? It is something that, like, if you start to send a lot of email, this thing on the left, at least it's on my left, you have to use a lot. Look into the mirror. What would you think if you would get that email? And also for the blacklist providers, or blocklist providers called nowadays. So basically, how do they see my company? How do they see my brand? How's my marketing going? And that's something that you basically have to stand still for more than once, and not like, oh, okay, next Tuesday my next email run is going, so I don't really care what's inside. You should really care what's inside. So this topic, this is basically, and it's a wink to the Dutch day. So today, Inbox Expo also has a Dutch day, and well, I am Dutch, so at the same time as I am having this keynote, the Dutch day is also kicking off. So this is a wink to them. There will be a lot of Dutch sessions also, with the Aris list washing machine. This is one of the first washing machines made in Holland ever. So it's a nice wink. So list washing. This is a topic that I have been listening to a couple of the sessions. List washing comes back every now and then, like, yeah, but you should take care of your list. Just wash it. And I'm like, if you need to wash your list, then you have some issues in the first place. It's like taking a spearmint. If you have a bad breath, you take a spearmint that lasts like 10 minutes, 30 minutes. If that mint is gone, your bread is not fixed. You have to fix the underlying issue. And it's the same with list hygiene. If you have a bad list and you need list washing to basically clean it up, then you have to rethink, how did those people get on my list in the first place? And how do I re-engage with them? I personally think list washing should not be needed. You should have something that basically gets your clients excited to get your email. And if not, they should unsubscribe. There should not be any list washing involved there. It's if you ask me, it's bad advice. But there's a lot of companies who offer list washing, so I guess there's a market for it. So you are basically, and I cannot imagine that nobody of you, if you are an ESP, if you're a sender, that you never heard about blocklist providers. So in case you heard about them, please be open to whatever comes next, because sometimes we get in information requests. Like we had some in the last few weeks, and I have to explain a little bit. There is a lot of cracked sites going on, specifically at GoDaddy. It is what it is, and basically a lot of sites are compromised, being used in botnets. Those botnets send out a crazy load of spam, and you see the hacked accounts there. The redirectors usually go to Bitcoin sites. So that's basically been going on for a few weeks already right now. So sometimes we get a delisting request in from a legitimate company. That could be your grocery at the corner, because, well, he was not really able to update his site properly, and well, we know how it goes. He installed WordPress, didn't look at it for 5 years, only puts his weekly ad there, and that's it. Sometimes it's smaller sites. Sometimes it's also bigger sites. So to give you a funny example, we got a delisting request from a very, very big Japanese organization. They were basically listed on the stock market. And they said, well, and that it was more like a lawyer thing. Like, you have to delist us because we don't spam. We're a Fortune 500 company, and you need to delist us because it's damaging. So then we explained the damaging part. The damaging part was that their corporate website was hacked, and basically part of that Bitcoin scam. Once we explained it, they did not even get back to us anymore. They resolved it, but likely they were so ashamed that they did not even give feedback anymore. So unless you know the reason, the real reason, and not the reason that you think it is, just reach out to us and see if that reason you think it is actually is the reason that you're listed. So some of our data is categorized in sources. We have phishing sites, cracked sites, also just spam. So if you are in cracked, basically listed as a cracked website, and you try to resolve it by list washing, that's not helping, because that's not the real issue. So you are listed. Why should I care? Why should I care? I mean, that's what we hear a lot. Like, oh, okay, until something happened after that listing. They find out, wow, I end up in Gmail's spam box now. Or my domain registrar switched off my domain. My complete business is offline. And then we basically, we can always resolve that. I mean, people make mistakes. We are not here to judge that. We are just basically helping here people to protect their inbox. That's it. So if that is resolved, we can also resolve the listings. But people only really take care if they see consequences. If there's no consequences, they will still be doing what they will be doing all the time, because, well, they do this to make money. So many registries and registrars also take in our data. So we're not only protecting inboxes, we're basically also alerting all the registries and registrars. In fact, ICANN, who is basically the overall registrar, let's call it like that, they operate all of the TLDs, or they do not operate but coordinate all the TLDs. And they also have an abuse program. So that abuse program also produces a report every year. And that report roughly is based on the data of two providers. It's SURBL and Spamhaus. So if you care about your brand's reputation, really check if you are being listed on one of the bigger block lists. Because if you are basically ignoring that, that's basically the start of, well, it's a tear down for your reputation. I cannot describe it differently. So many registrars and registries take in the data, and they also do it to suspend domains. So let's say you register a .info domain, and it's a lookalike. You basically say, this is what I'm using for this campaign. And that's also something, we'll discuss that later, but that's something we are not really fond of. So if you have a big company, let's say Amazon, Coca-Cola, Microsoft, you don't see them using throwaway domains to promote their brand. No, they work on their brand. That's what they are. They are the brand. So if you basically start to work on a new email campaign, set it up as your domain. Don't try to do side steps with that unless you are promoting two companies or 3 companies or 4 companies. But if you're basically targeting and try to promote your domain or your company, then that's what you're targeting and not something else. And again, it's your reputation. So if there's something going on, fix it. And don't leave it around till your boss finds out and says, well, what the hell happened? It is something that you have to work on over time. It's just how it is. It's your brand, so be really careful about it. What we also have seen over the last few years, there has been a lot of consolidation in the market. It's just how the market works. But it also means that if you consolidate 3-4 big players in the market, you also end up with legacy services. Great name, legacy services. For me, it's an alternative of, we don't maintain this anymore, don't complain. And that's what we also see a lot, where basically could be anything. So our advice is, don't act like a spammer. You are basically protecting your brand, you're building your brand, And then if you ask me, you don't need throwaway domains. And we still see that. We still see a lot of campaigns going on. They register a bunch, and that's not snowshoe. It's really like a normal campaigns that basically use a few throwaway domains. Build your brand. Don't do that with throwaway domains. And again, it's about the brand. It's not about the ESP. So customize. If your ESP offers one generic open link tracker, customize that to your own domain. It's about your brand. It's not about the ESP, right? So basically, you use the ESP as the platform, but what you do with it and how people receive your email is up to you. And it's also a misunderstanding that if you change ESPs, your deliverability will be quite different. I think it can vary a little bit, but it basically has to do with the content. It has to do with what you are bringing, the message. That's the more important part. The ESP is basically the vehicle that delivers it. That's it. And very important, be transparent. If you have some open issues with a block list provider, just tell what happened. We all make mistakes, no problem at all. So a little bit back to SURBL. What do we do? Where do we get our data from? So you have a little bit of an idea what's inside the mix. So we get our data from registries, law enforcement, in-house spam traps, independent security researchers, governmental agencies. We have a lot in the mix. So why do we do this, and why don't we source it at one place? We have a very big view of what's going on in the world. So we have been part of the spam assassin community for years. Basically, well, 20 years ago. We started also with the spam assassin project. With that, we run a lot of public mirrors. So we see if it's Asia, if it's Europe, if it's USA, Canada, we see all of those traffics flows. We see them on our name server. So we already have a good view on what's surging and what's not. But you still want to have all of the data. So sometimes they target something in Southeast Tajikistan. And well, if we have an ISP there that's helping us, that's helping. So it is about getting the more complete picture there. Data source-wise, we categorize in phishing, cracked sites, malware sites, abuse sites, but we also have a service that's called Fresh, and that's something that ESPs might be interested in. So basically, if you have a new customer sign up, and that customer says, I have no idea, this domain is 3 days old, should I take on that customer? And then you might need to rethink. Either you want to take the money, or you care about your ESP brand and do the onboarding a little bit more careful. So that's up to you, but it's your brand. So sharing is caring. A lot of the list information that basically goes on is also acquired by sharing. And it could even be whitelist data. So, for example, with the banking industry, we have agreements that some of the overall banking agencies deliver us a list with banks. And that might sound silly, but I live in the Netherlands. We have a handful of banks here. But if I'm going to some conference in Southeast Asia and I walk across the street, then sometimes I see the bank that I thought was phishing. I see that for the first time because, well, we don't have that bank here. So if that bank merges, I have no idea, and I love to know from the branch organizations. And it's the same with companies that you are serving. If you know about a big merger, let us know. So we can whitelist some of the domains. It's not the absolute guarantee, but if you're not informing us, we cannot take action either. The same for cloud providers. If somebody decides to rebrand their cloud services, it might be useful to basically let us know. The whitelist is not a guarantee, again, but a lot of them will be. This is basically a mention for all list providers. Over the last few years, many of the list providers stopped their services. Many have been targeted to DDoS attacks multiple times. Both Spamhaus and SURBL have been under attack more than once. And if you're doing this on a voluntary basis and you run a service to basically help the community and you have been DDoSed off the net a few times, you just stop. You give up. So we lost already a lot of list providers over the last 5-6 years. If you're using list providers, most of them are not that expensive, but very useful for your brand. So seeing that they're non-profit, just like SURBL was for a very long time, we can only do this with funding. That's basically how it works. So some practical jokes that and many people think that this is like made up. I could open the tickets. All of these lines have been said over the last month. So not like something that happened in the past. This is the last month. We fixed it. It was an intern that added a bad list and we fired him. Well, I don't know. Like, if you let your interns handle your most precious good inside your company, I don't know. I would not let an intern handle that, but yeah. And the other one is like, the problem is resolved, please delist us. And they give no specific answer or pointer of what's being fixed. And they were like, you don't even know what the issue is, why we listed you, but you say it's resolved. And usually it's not. Might be a cracked site that is still on the list, but yeah. This one we hear a lot. People do want our emails. No, they did not opt in, but they can always unsubscribe. And we sell great products. So that's the reason that we spam. Or educational spam. I cannot call it differently if it's unsolicited. That basically says, well, we have the right to educate people. So this is not, you cannot treat this as spam. And then we're like, sure, okay. Right. If you think back about your ESP or your brand, and it's basically for both of them, you have to think about onboarding. Sounds perhaps really silly, but if you care about your ESP's reputation, then you should basically care about the customers that you're taking in. If you take in a customer that has been booted off several ESPs, you have to wonder, why is my management willing to make money on this? Because it will damage the reputation. There is some things that you can do with the onboarding, and Andrew kindly mentioned eHawk in the introduction. eHawk is basically a product that can help you with your onboarding process. It can vet your customer. If you have onboarding issues or you think onboarding could be better for your company, have a look at eHawk. There's a lot of intel in there. eHawk was founded, and not many people know that, but it was founded by a few of the bigger ESPs who said, we will help each other. So they also saw bad actors going from one to the other. So I'm not going to tell a lot more about it, but I think it might be worth looking into that. So it is really about onboarding, I think. That's where it starts. If you take on a bad customer, he will be bad along the way. it's also about rechecking. And we have seen that also, that if you have a pretty normal customer, nothing bad, but if his account is compromised, eventually somebody will send out malware phishing campaigns to the list that is a nice list. It was a good list, a good customer, but basically it's an account takeover. So you should check and recheck and recheck and recheck. Did I mention recheck? You should recheck. So there should be processes basically that say it's a customer, it's a good customer, but we still will check if not something changed. If he is now logging in from Asia or China or Russia, and not to say if that's bad, but if he usually logs in from somewhere else, then that might be a pointer that something is going on. So have a close look on what your customers are doing is key here. And it's the same as a sender. Take care of your clients. Maintain, maintain, maintain. And maintaining, again, it's not list washing. Maintaining is something you do yourself. So this is basically what my keynote was about. I think time-wise, it went okay. We might still have some time to answer questions. Anything you wanted to ask about block lists or something I said earlier during the slides, go ahead.
Hi, Raymond. I don't know if you're logged in to hop in simultaneously to this. The chat room's been going off. People were very upset. They lost sound for a few seconds, or maybe a minute. Actually, nothing was lost because you were just talking about the sound being lost, so that worked out quite well. Yeah. They're about a minute behind us. There's been a huge amount of feedback. I also know Quint's waiting backstage to start his presentation. I think on the most part, there was a lot of feedback from the ESPs saying, look, we just want to say thank you. We know what you do. We know why you do it and how you do it. And from the compliance departments, Alexandre, Zubrik, Bart, there's a whole bunch of them in the chat room. I'm sure if you join them there, they'd love to have a talk. But on the most part, it's been thank you, thank you, thank you. Alexandra also uses eHawk. That's a product I introduced to a number of companies. I know before I left Campaign Monitor, they took it on board, and there's a whole bunch of other brands that I'm subject to NDA, but I know that they also took up my recommendation of eHawk. It's a great product. It's fairly priced, and it's very easy to implement a number of stages. So yeah, you talked about account breaches, but there is so much more that a smart department can do with it. So yeah, that's really, really useful product. And so yeah, I definitely recommend people take a look at that. Who's mentoring the intern? Yeah, I think it was just on the most part a whole bunch of agreement with your comments and stuff. I know it was, I can see just by the people that say nice, thanks, great, that there was a lot of ESPs present. So I'm sure the audience that you were looking to target was there. I'm just going to message Quint quickly. I'm keeping this. So I'm just going to keep a live stream going, and I'm going to run Quint in. Quint's actually here. So I want to thank you personally for everything that SURBL, Spam House, Spam Cop, URIBL, and many of the others that have unfortunately gone in the past few years, as you mentioned. They all did stellar work. I know that all of your lists are available on the most part for free for lookups, but if you can be bothered as a commercial organization to take a look, there is somewhere the option to pay for a fee that you could probably get for free, but the payment is very reasonable, and yeah, absolutely, I believe ESPs should all be subscribed to those lists and making the small payments that you ask for that kind of commercial usage, despite the fact that yeah, it is very easily available for free in any case. They need to be supported, and without them, we don't have an industry. So thank you for your time. And Quint up next. So I will. Hey, Quint, you're actually live.
Great.
Sorry for the delay there. I'm sorry I couldn't talk to you. Raymond, thanks again. And please do join us in the chat room, because I think there's lots of people that want to say hello. Thank you, Raymond.